Hey, hey, hey. That used to be a really good thing to say. Hey, hey, hey. But these are different times. Welcome to A Real Point of View, everybody. I'm your host, Greg Morgan, and I am joined by my co hosts, Stephen C. and Karen D. Stephen C. is the movie critic who doesn't pick bad movies, and Karen D. is the movie maven herself. So we're here talking about sports films, real people, real films. And we've got three good ones for you that we went through a lot of different films talking about, what we thought were good films that had to do with biopics. So we're really talking about real people in these biopics. And so we kind of narrowed the situation down to three movies we thought were pretty good. And we wanted to talk to you guys about these movies tonight. So one of the films we're going to talk about is The Rookie, which I'll start off our show with that. We're going to talk about Invincible and also talk about The Blind Side. And so we'll introduce the different aspects of the films and then have a conversation about, the films themselves and what we liked about them and the real people that are involved in the films. So without further ado, I saw this movie probably, I don't know, um, probably three times. I thought the movie was that good, and for me, I guess I'm kind of old-fashioned when it comes to movies. I want to see films that move me. I want to see stories that are relevant in the times. Um, you know, Movies that leave an impression, I guess is a good way to say it. And this particular film, The Rookie, starring Dennis Quaid, left that impression on me. Basically, it's about a coach, baseball coach in South Texas, or West Texas actually, and a high school coach, and him re-imaging, refurbishing, reimagining a dream that he had of being a Major League Baseball pitcher. And the movie itself talks about his early life into his adulthood, trying to, uh, how we all have our dreams about sports. Um, we want to be the hero. We want to be the guy who, in this case, strikes out the last batter to win the World Series. This kid had this dream, and he was doing what he could to help facilitate that by playing baseball. He actually worked his way into being a really, really good pitcher. Now, one of the sad elements about anything in sports, especially when you're a kid, is trying to convince other people that you're as good as you are, trying to convince other people to be supportive. And in this particular film, the family, the mother was somewhat supportive, but the dad really wasn't that supportive. He was really very stoic, military father who, you know, did what he did for his family. He did everything he could for his family, but um, it didn't translate into being very um, emotionally supportive and or even physically supportive as far as this kid's baseball was concerned in this particular film. Um, and the film actually depicts a real person in life. This is a biopic, and as I alluded to, we're going to be talking about biopics this whole time. Jimmy Morris, who was going through this experience, and finally, as a baseball coach in high school, he challenges his players. Well, his players find out that he actually was a pitcher, and he's been kind of pitching, kind of on the side with one of the catchers on the team. And there's like, well, one of the best motivations as a person is to motivate people by doing, motivate people by being an example. So that's what this whole movie is about. This coach challenges his team to be better. And so they challenge him back to be better, to be that inspiration, be that true mentor by saying, hey, you're challenging us to be a better team. to be a team that's a championship team. But we challenge you that if we win this championship, what are you going to do, coach? You need to go to a tryout and try out for your dream again. Now, one of the things that deterred Morris from his dream was, he got injured. So he told his wife, he wasn't going to ever try to pitch again. His major league dream never was fulfilled. When they encouraged him to try to fulfill that dream. And that's what the movie's about. So before we go into more depth about all the movies, let me get your take, Karen and Steve, about The Rookie. Jimmy Morris trying to, after his team wins the championship, is he going to do it? Does he do it? There's a lot of things out there that motivate us. There's a lot of things out there that detract us from our dreams. And this is a dream situation, a dream opportunity to rekindle something that was lost or put far out of the reach of reality. What do you guys think about the film and the true aspect of this guy really surpassing the odds and trying to make it back into a situation that eluded him?
Well, go ahead, Karen.
I guess I was going to say I remember when this movie came out and I went to go see it, and for me it's one of those movies. It's very enjoyable because it has. This is one thing that I always say. People who know me know that I always say this. Nobody gets in this world young. Nobody leaves this world younger than when they came in. Right. So the notion in this country that the only time when it makes sense for you to focus on your life or to care about the direction of your life is when you're young is just, from the nature of physics, a ridiculous proposition in this country. In my opinion, it's just totally obsessed with trying to beat that immutable law, that unchangeable law. So for me, I'm always a sucker for those movies that show the total fallacy of that proposition, that somehow once you get to a certain age, you're not interesting anymore, nobody cares about you anymore, you're just supposed to do whatever you do, and it's really time to focus on the children or the young adults, and that's all we care about. So I like the movie just from that perspective. This is a guy who's, on paper, well past his prime, and he decides to do this tryout, not because he's saying, well, I should have made it and I'm going to make it no matter what, but because he's really trying to help his kids. Right. And, I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. I think a lot of people were when this movie came out. This is like a good guy trying to think of some way out of the box to really capture the imagination of his kids. And the way he does it is by putting himself on the line. And in my opinion, that's a very winning formula. I don't recall, or I guess what I recall is that the movie didn't necessarily score that well with the critics at the time, because for various reasons. And I'm not going to say this is like a great knock your socks off film. In my opinion, it's not. But it's heartwarming and it's engaging, and one of the reasons that I go to the movies is to find somebody to root for, and it really helps if the person I'm rooting for is somebody that I can relate to. And since I'm getting older, it helps if the person I'm rooting for is also getting older too, not in some sort of perpetual state of adolescence. Right. So from that standpoint, I really like the film. I think Dennis Quaid brought a lot of realism to the film because he used to pitch. He used to be a pitcher. Yeah. And a number of the shots in the film didn't require a double. I mean, like the really fast shots, like I think that the guy that this movie's based on, they were just shocked when he could pitch 98 miles an hour. I was like, wow, awesome. So when Dennis Quaid playing the person in this movie was doing those pitches, yeah, they needed a double for that, but otherwise, no, they didn't, because the man knows how to pitch, and he knows baseball. So that, to me, just helps carry the film through. And Dennis Quaid, I really can't remember a bad performance that Dennis Quaid has given. He's been in some bad movies, he's been in some clunkers, he's been in some really good movies. But no matter what movie he's in, I struggle to try to recall any instance in which he gave a bad performance.
Yeah,
and
he's a stellar actor, I agree.
Yeah, he really did a good job in this movie. I think it's a little problematic that the person that they had playing his father looked like he was his brother. It's things like that to me detract from what could have been a really awesome movie. So, casting decisions, some of the production values, sort of detracted from making this movie a great movie. But the heart of the movie is something that is just very engaging and sort of, life affirming. And it's the kind of thing, you go to the movies, not just to be uplifted or intellectually challenged, but to be touched emotionally. And this movie is very touching. So that's what I like about it.
Yeah, I went into this film with that intention, knowing the storyline and hoping that the movie would come through. And as you alluded to, it's not necessarily the best movie on earth. It wasn't, I don't even think that was the intention. The intention for this movie was to get you to understand the essence of a real person and what they go through, and to inspire you, as you alluded to too, how he inspired the athletes and even his own children, especially his son, with regard to, now you see that on the son's level, a dad who had been injured, a dad who, loved the game of baseball. You were loving the game of baseball as a kid, and you see your dad taking a risk and knowing the pitfalls in taking a risk when it comes to any endeavor, any journey into professional sports. You take a risk, he uplifted the son by even going. And you see the little kids like, wow, this is great. And he's getting into the emotions. See the team and even the town. The town comes together in this film. And again, this is a biopic, so these are things that, are based on things that really happened. So you gotta love a small town behind you, not just because of your physical ability. In this case, the town was behind him because of who he was as a person. He was that much, he had upheld that much of integrity with the town that it was a no-brainer to support it. And I thought that was kind of cool. And again, this is a feel-good movie. So I appreciate this film. So what about you, Steve? What do you think about The Rookie?
I really enjoyed the movie. I really enjoyed the fact that it's really about a second chance. It's about achieving something that you feel like you yourself let slip away, even though there was extenuating circumstances that this wasn't your fault that your dream slipped away. I like the fact that him as a person, I can't be a player, but I can teach people how to play this game that I love, becoming a coach, teaching at a high school, really educating young minds. And trying to make them not give up on their dreams. The kids in the movie, his baseball team, inspiring him again because they weren't actually a very good baseball team. They had a lot of problems, and they were kind of branded as the district losers. But because of helping him by he throws fastballs during their batting practices, so they actually adjust to a faster speed pitch, but also helping him practice on what he's going to need if he tries out for a major league team. Little nuances in the movie really give this movie get a lot of praise from me. One thing that he wears all the time is it's a necklace or a chain. It's of Saint Rita. And Saint Rita is the saint of impossible dreams. So it really shows that he still has it in his heart that he wants to play baseball. His wife, during a time where he actually gets accepted into a baseball team and he goes up to AAA and the bills are piling up at home and the pay, especially for a family. It's not just one guy who's trying to support.
Sorry to say,
Encouraging him just like his mother.
We're missing some of what you're saying is not coming across. So can you repeat
that? I'm kind of getting that from y'all's end too. But like his wife supporting him like his mother did when he was growing up, and really telling him not to lose hope, but to maintain and stay on the path. And then at the end of the movie, where the first game that he pitches in, he strikes out a guy by throwing 3 fastballs, and his father comes to the game, and his father apologizes and is now like that level of proud and of his son. And his dad didn't, more or less, sometimes it's your dad or your parents don't want you, and so they try to keep you from achieving a dream that you might not get because they don't want you to experience that
failure. Yeah.
And it's really little things like that I feel made this movie and the story itself a lot better, all around.
Very cool. Well, our next journey into real people, real film, real lives is a movie that when I first saw it, I'm a big football fan. So this film was a big deal for me. And I kind of like Mark Wahlberg as an actor, so it wasn't too far-fetched that I was going to watch the film. But I was pleasantly surprised by the next film that we're going to discuss. So why don't you introduce us to this film, Steve, Invincible?
Invincible is just like The Rookie in the fact that it's kind of an every person's dream. If you're a football fan, you're an average guy, you feel like you were good enough, but you got afterwards and live that dream that you always want. And it's a movie that really goes through a lot of hardship, more so than The Rookie, of a person trying to get to that point. Vince Papale.
I think it's Vince Papale.
I'm sorry. Papale. Played by Mark Wahlberg. Yeah.
Well, can I say this in Steve's defense? When you watch the film, the media personality in the film who works for the local station in Philadelphia, he comes to the bar where he sees Vince. He says, "Here I am with Vince Papale." He goes, "No, it's Papale." So that's actually part of the film that happens.
I meant to do that.
Yes, I knew you did.
But this is the city of Philly. Philly has actually been going through a terrible stretch as a city because people are getting laid off, jobs are getting closed down, shops, and just everybody's kind of having that going everybody's way. is he's a substitute teacher and he's a part-time bartender. So he's really doing multiple support himself and his wife at the time. And he plays pickup football games in a park on basically dirt, almost concrete, in where they play, and they're playing full contact football with just the guys around around the neighborhood, and they're playing other guys from other neighborhoods, just having fun and really getting to imagine themselves living their dream. And he's the best player out there. He's so much better, faster, he's stronger, he's tougher than everybody out there. Well, he ends up getting laid off from his school job, from his substitution job. He supporting the household as much as he should, so she ends up leaving him. And then he goes to the bar where he part-time bartends, and it just seems like everything's coming crashing down, and he's not going to be able to live up to the expectations he sets for himself. And I believe it's Dick Vermeil gets hired as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's going to turn the team around. He's going to make them better. It's really a good pickup as a coach. He's had success in the past, and he gives an open tryout to the citizens of Philadelphia to come out and try out for their Philadelphia Eagles. And there's a lot of people that you see during this period of time that should not try out for any football team ever. A comedic point in the movie to break up the seriousness going along. Vince is the only person taken and is invited to the Philadelphia Eagles football camp because he's got the skill, but he's got a certain amount of heart that Vermeil can really see in him. And after going to the camp, he goes through and he ends up becoming a Philadelphia Eagle. And he works out on their special teams. He comes in the stadium for the first time, and he's just in awe of being the player down on the field instead of just sitting in the stands and watching he gets to be the person that they chant his name. He goes through some hardships at first, but he really becomes a good player. And it's about getting that shot. And he ends up playing in the NFL for 3 years, which is more than great players coming out of college. And
yeah,
so
it's definitely another feel-good type of movie.
Good story about overcoming.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I thought it was fantastic. As you alluded to, him walking onto the field. One of the scenes that I remember watching it was as he looks around and just trying to take it all in. He looks to the area where he normally has season tickets, and a lot of his friends have season tickets, and he points. And they go wild because they know he's pointing to them, saying, yes, it's you, my people. And I thought that was kind of cool. And despite, like you said, early mistakes that he may have made, he was one of those guys that endures. He's a tough guy, like you said. So he puts his one foot in front of the other, and that's how he lives his life, 1 foot at a time. And he finally gets it. He finally gets into the swing of things. He remembers things that he's taught by different players throughout his time in the camp. And now he takes that to heart, and it actually works in their favor when it comes to some of the games that they're being played. So, I really like this movie. I think of all the movies that we talk about today, I think I've seen this the most often. It's very inspiring to me.
About this movie, it really is the average man.
Yeah.
This is the everyday Joe. This is just a guy just trying to make it through life and gets to live a dream for his hometown team.
I think it's probably the epitome of a really good feel-good story. Yeah. It's a very blue-collar guy who, along with other blue-collar guys, of the time. Um, it's very inspirational, just not just for him, but again, the community at large, um, his friends and acquaintances, the people in that logistic area bond together all the time anyway to help each other out, seemingly in the film. And so this is another thing that, with all the terrible things that were happening, this is one of those things that uplifts, if not them monetarily or physically, uplifts them emotionally to feel like there are possibilities, to feel like hope is a reality, not just a pipe dream. So yeah, this is
I want to add one more thing.
Sure.
My favorite scene in the movie is actually at the very end where he scores that touchdown, and the bartender, the guy that he worked for, that runs the bar, actually turns, and his father's
Say again.
points at him, and he said, "That's your son."
Mm-hmm.
So his dad also got to live a dream and got to see his son's success. Kind of like a little bit, not quite as much as the rookie, but got to, feel that sense of
Right.
pride. There you go.
Yeah. Very, very proud moments in both films for the fathers. And I think even going back to the rookie for a moment, I don't think the father was one of those guys that didn't want his kid to succeed. He was just very practical. And because of his situation and his job, it was hard for him to do anything but be that military person that he was. And not being able to be a part of those family bonding things, I think that wore on him too in a very negative way. And it made him, for lack of a better way of saying it, made him a little jealous, I think, of those things. And so he didn't embrace them as readily. Of course, later on in life, when those things are no longer a part of it, it's hard to rebound with the rest of the family who took what you were doing and more abrasively than it was intended. And a little bit better, I think, in Invincible. The dad, although you can tell the struggle of the son was hard on him a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
He also was a man's man, so he's like, you got to pick yourself up, Vince. You got to do this. No one else can do it for you. And at a time when Vince was like, I need your help, Dad. I just didn't want to ask for it, know how his dad was, didn't want to deal with that, but found that his dad was more receptive than he thought he would be prior to the tryout. So that was kind of good to see. His dad was even supportive prior to the fame and that came about by Vince being part of the Philadelphia Eagles. So, well, why don't we go ahead into our next film?
Well, I didn't get to talk about this film.
I was going to say, unless Karen, you have something to add to our.
No, I did. I thought we were all going to talk about the films.
Well, go.
Don't get mad at me.
Well, you just kind of steamrolled over me there.
I apologize.
No, not you. I'm talking about Gregory. But anyway, thanks.
Greg approves this message.
Maybe Quick Draw should give his opinion.
See?
You brought him up this time.
I know, because I'm desperate. The only thing I was going to say is that I think this, I agree with you all about your assessments. I think the movie is definitely a feel-good movie, but I will just make this observation. This movie took place, this movie is about a guy who did this in like the mid-70s, before the days of the internet, before the days of American Idol, before the days of Dancing with the Stars and all these other programs that just seem to run all over television now that are focused on this whole, let's get an unknown, pluck somebody out and discover them and make them a star. MasterChef, Top Chef to, a certain extent. And, lots of other shows. The Next Food Network star. Survivor. All of these shows. So, the movie was actually made in the early 2000s, after, well after these shows, made their entrance into our culture. But it was about what happened in the 70s. So, I think the notion of having these tryouts, just exemplifies the desperation that the real coach had. I mean, he was plumb out of ideas. And he had to find some way to get the fans back on his side, because the Philadelphia Eagles were like, they had a picture of them next to losers in the dictionary. They'd lost 11 straight games, and the fans hated them. So, because they were so bad. And it was like, I mean, it's okay to be a little bad, because that kind of tension might actually bring people to your games. But they were so bad, they were at serious risk of just losing.
Uh-oh.
No!
Oh no! Midstream.
They were losing.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. My computer just completely had a little burp there.
No worries.
And it's still burping. I don't know why.
Is she breaking up on your end too, Greg?
A little bit.
Okay.
She's
Yeah,
back.
technical difficulties.
Just keep talking, Karen.
Okay. Well, okay. I think I'm back. But anyway, it just.
Oh, you are back.
Okay, and this is a good thing. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, so it's just kind of interesting that notion of. I think it was pretty daring for this coach to just do that, because there was so much on the line for him to lose. Like, if you do these tryouts and you don't get anybody, and so people are interested as long as the tryouts are going on, but if you don't actually come up with somebody, then they immediately lose interest. Or you get somebody, but they really turn out not to be that good, and then they're really mad at you. Or there is this chance that, you find this diamond in the rough. And this coach, because of his particular perception and insights, was open to finding a diamond in the rough. So that really helped. The other thing is that there's just, you really get set up to feel for the Vince Papale character is played by Mark Wahlberg, because Mark Wahlberg is, by Hollywood standards, pretty handsome, and he's pretty well built. And it's just terrible that these awful things are happening to him. I mean, how could somebody leave him? How could somebody say those mean things to him? He's Mark Wahlberg. And his wife, she doesn't deserve him. He's too cute to have somebody leave him. So you've got, so you have this setup where you've got this really handsome guy, and then his mean wife leaves him. Then you've got it with the note saying you'll never amount to. By the way, I don't think you'll ever amount to anything. And the father's like, don't even try it. Don't even try. Don't even try it. Don't try those tryouts. Please don't. It could be really embarrassing for everybody, especially me. I mean, you. And then and then of course, plucky, cute Mark Wahlberg goes in there and he fights the good fight, and he scores like this really awesome wife who's really deserving, because he was such a good guy to begin with. So this is like Hollywood really just setting you up. I mean, I think, I don't know what Vince Papale looks like in real life, but he probably doesn't look like Mark Wahlberg.
No,
And
he kind of doesn't.
And the woman that Vince Papale married, his second marriage, probably doesn't look like Elizabeth Banks. But
He doesn't.
be that as it may, it's still, it's still a really cool, story. So, I mean, it's very likable. Again, it's very heartwarming, and you really can't help but root for somebody like Vince Papale, because Vince Papale is every man. We could all be, we all think we're diamonds in the rough. We could all be a Vince Papale, It's just that no one's had the good sense to discover us yet.
Right.
So that's exactly what Hollywood depends on when they tell these stories. And I guess what I'm saying is that I don't know what happened for real. I mean, I wasn't there, but Hollywood just sort of they sort of stack the deck so that you are almost destined to feel a certain way about a certain character. And sometimes that's great, and sometimes it's like, it could be a really great movie if you just told the story instead of sort of helping the story. That would be my comment.
We know that marketing is a big deal when it comes to pretty much anything that entails television or movies, in order to get people to watch. And of course, scoring certain actors and actresses is part of that marketing ploy. But also, you also want to get people who you think are going to be able to pull it off. And so that's just equally as important. And in this case, both occur. But even more compelling is the actual story itself, and the fact that it is based off of a true story. And there is video footage of Vince Papale, the real Vince Papale, scoring that touchdown that Steve was alluding to earlier in our conversation. And it was similar to what they showed in the movie version of the story. Similar enough that, in seeing the real footage, it just makes it even that much more heartfelt, because you really know that it actually happened. And in the latter part of the credits, you actually see Vince Papale, and they talk about the fact that he played in the NFL for 3 years, and then went on to still live in the Philadelphia area with his wife, and quote unquote live happily ever after. So,
Right.
We're hoping that films like this inspire, and I think that's part of the reason for biopics, successful biopics, because they inspire, regardless of whether it's a positive outcome or not. Because some of what the inspiration is sometimes is built off of the negative thing that may have occurred in that biopic, i.e., something like, like Martin Luther King. There's been many different renditions of biopics about Martin Luther King, but all of us knowing that in the end it was a tragic ending. But nevertheless, and not anything less than still inspirational to many people. So, fortunately, in this case, The Rookie and as well as Invincible, these people were able to do something that, of course, out of the ordinary, do something that fulfilled a dream, do something that seemed like it was too far-fetched and out of the realms of reality, out of the realms of possibility, and still be able to do this thing and overcome, even if it's a small window of success. So all those things are very successful, very motivational, as well as very good casting to get that additional motivational essence. So,
Karen came in with an agenda and attacked that movie.
Yes, she did.
Roar.
But my question is, what does Quick Draw think? Was he offended about this film and these films? I think so. We'll have to find a way to find him through his agent and get him actually to be on our show one day.
Yeah, good luck with that. He took the last train for the coast, but anyway.
Well, maybe we can get a plane back.
But back to the topic at hand.
Thank you, Steve, for bringing
I
us
believe
back.
it's Karen's turn.
Yes, it is. And the movie that I want to talk about is the third movie in our trilogy, and it's called The Blind Side. It's a 2009 production starring Sandra Bullock, Quentin Aaron, Tim McGraw, Joe Head. Of course, by far the most well-known person in the of the cast is Sandra Bullock, who won an Academy Award for Best Actress for this movie. And the movie is again based on a true story about Michael Oher, who is a left tackle, became a left tackle for the Baltimore Ravens. And this movie was very popular where I live because I'm not that far from Raven Stadium. So, when this movie came out in 2009, there was intense interest in the East Coast about this movie because it kind of hits close to home. Just, the same as with The Rookie and Invincible. I'm sorry, I meant The Rookie, not Invincible. But anyway, so basically it tells the story about this young kid who's homeless, and he's living in, rough areas of Baltimore or whatever, and somehow he falls into, he crosses paths with this kid, and they kind of develop this friendship. And through this friendship, he ends up meeting the family, and the family just really takes a liking to him. I mean, he's like this gentle giant. That was sort of like a line that kept showing up in the film. He's sort of this gentle giant. And the family just kind of ends up adopting him. His mother is a drug addict. His father doesn't know where he is. He's sort of, prison. Gone. Oh, prison. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure I couldn't remember if he was in prison or if he was just gone.
Well,
but
can I interject for a moment?
What?
They weren't overly sure who his father truly was. When the administration at the high school confronted him, they said they think the guy who they believe is your father had passed away. When Sandra Bullock's character went to visit the mother, she wasn't quite sure what last name to give him because she wasn't quite sure who the father was.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So we're both right then. Well, I'm really more right than Steve is. But anyway.
She punched you in the gut, Steve. She punched you in the gut.
I'll take it.
Strong man.
Yeah, it's very strong. So, but anyway, so he basically, it's like the hand of God just kind of plucked him out of what was certain disaster and gently placed him in the arms of the most amazing family ever created in the history of the world. And he thrives in this family with some ups and downs, whatever, but he basically thrives, and he ends up playing professional football. And he still plays professional football, not with the Baltimore Ravens anymore. I think he's with the Florida team. I can't remember what team he went to, but anyway, he's not with the Baltimore Ravens anymore.
But with the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, is it? Okay, it's not Florida, the Carolina Panthers. Okay, but he's well regarded as a professional football player. He's definitely had a very a fairly distinguished career.
Yep.
So that's the true story. Now to the film. This is a sports film. It's a sports biography, but because of Sandra Bullock's tour de force performance, I think this movie is really much more her movie than his movie. And and that's not a criticism. I think that's just it's almost like this movie really it's like the camera's trying to focus on Michael Oher, but it can't help but just kind of drift back to Sandra Bullock, back and back and back to Sandra Bullock. And you're really fascinated by her because against everything that makes sense, she sort of wills this unlikely alliance to exist and dares anybody to try to interfere with it. Mm-hmm. And she's like this fierce tigress, and you can't take your eyes off of her. I mean, I can remember like a bit of a kerfuffle after the movie came out because the movie, extremely popular. In fact, according to IMDb, it is the highest grossing sports movie of all time. And that's saying something. That's saying a lot. So people flocked to see this movie. And it got great reviews from the critics. It was really, really considered a well done movie. It got a 7.7 out of 10 rating on IMDb, which is pretty high. But critics just loved this movie mainly because of Sandra Bullock's performance. So that said, after the popularity of the movie became evident, Michael Oher caused a bit of a kerfuffle by saying that he thought The Blind Side was the worst thing that had ever happened to him in his football career. Because after the movie came out, it was like, I don't know, well, it's like whatever. But anyway, it's like, dude, just count your blessings and move on. But he said that the movie created unrealistic expectations about the kind of football player he was supposed to be. And so that was unfair. And he also, and I think this is a legitimate criticism, he didn't like the way in which he was portrayed in the movie because the character Michael Oher in the movie kind of comes across as this kind of inarticulate, extremely quiet, not real smart. I mean, street smart, but not intellectually all that bright kind of guy who just, has all this raw talent, but doesn't know how to focus it and doesn't know what he wants. But, with the guidance of this family and his friend, the friends in the family and all this other stuff, somehow he stumbles into a football career. That was I'm paraphrasing, but that was sort of what he was implying with his criticism of the movie. When in reality, he was I don't know about but he was certainly very adept, very competent as a student. And it's not like he didn't know football. He knew football inside and out. And, he was sought after by colleges, not just because he was big and he could cover the blind side, but because he was a really adept football player. So I guess he sort of took issue with this, with sort of the impression that the movie gives that but for this family, he never would have found his way onto the football field. So, take from that what you will. But I will say that The Blind Side was just a really interesting film. And I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite films. And one of the things I do like about it is that there is focus on a woman in this movie. In most sports movies, unless the sports movie is about the woman, women have just sort of very ancillary, very, sort of trivialized roles. They're on the sidelines, they're kind of rooting, and, and then they're the love interest, which isn't all that interesting because all we care about is the game. And that's it. And this was way different. In the first place, she's a really interesting character because, this is like a woman from the South She's a devout Christian. She's a NRA card-carrying conservative Republican. And yet but she and her family adopt this African-American kid into their household, and they love him. So that's really interesting visually and just from a storytelling standpoint to begin with. And she's fearless. I mean, there's this one scene where she takes him back to the old neighborhood, and somebody tries to mess with her, and she's like, I've got a gun. I know how to use it, and you can better believe it's loaded. So you can either step off or you can limp off. You pick it. I mean, that's not what she really said, but you get what I'm saying. She did not take any mess from anybody, and it's really thrilling it was really thrilling for me when the movie came out to see that kind of female character in a movie about sports. So I just think it was awesome, and I just love Sandra Bullock's performance, and I think as well as brilliantly as she did, the other people in the film, these other cast members, Quentin Aaron and Tim McGraw especially, I mean, they needed to allow her room to do what she did. And they did. I mean, when you've got somebody who draws that much focus in the film for the other actors, it requires a lot of just actor thinking to work with that, so that both of you, so that your characters can occupy the space of the movie. It's not easy to do all the time, but I mean, Tim McGraw is a very good actor in his own right, always has been. Quentin Aaron's a relative unknown. In fact, he worked as a security guard before getting, I mean, he was auditioning as an actor, and he had acting roles, but he wasn't making his living as an actor. He was making his living as a security guard. And in fact, he left a card when he did the audition for The Blind Side. He left a card saying, "And if you don't pick me to actually be in the movie, I'll be happy to be a security guard for you guys." So, but he did a really good job, I thought, in this movie. Although I think I can understand Michael Oher's sort of dissatisfaction with the way in which the character played by Quentin Aaron came off, because Michael Oher's like, that's not me. That's really not me. That's like they got the height right, and that was it. But so yeah, I mean, there was a great deal of dramatic license, I believe, that was taken to do this movie. But it was really entertaining. I think it was well written. The story moved. It kept you engaged. I remember going to the movies and being riveted, and I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen and how this was going to pan out. So I really enjoyed the movie. I think it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture too. It didn't win it, but I believe it was nominated.
I like this movie too. I've seen it quite a few times, looking at different aspects of it each time. Following Michael Oher professionally, he made a few Pro Bowls, so he was a stellar athlete for sure, and not just a big guy, but very athletic. But I think even early on in the film, he's an athletic guy, so I don't think that's the total issue there. Now, the film itself is narrated by Sandra Bullock's character from the beginning. So I thought, even with that being said, I knew she'd be a major part of not just Sandra Bullock, but the character would be a major part of the film, because she's actually narrating it.
Leanne Twohy.
Yeah, pretty much throughout the film. But yeah, this is such a likable movie, regardless of the true realities. Still, biopics are based off of reality, not just every nuance of the realistic essence. And then, of course, I want to, in my mindset, knowing how people are, knowing how I am as a person, not wanting to be embarrassed by a situation. And I think to some degree, the movie may have been a little bit embarrassing for Michael Orr. And obviously, he made his feelings known. But I don't think they did a lot of this film without his knowledge. So I kind of take that as a little bit here, a little bit there issue. But as a film, all in all, I thought this was pretty good too, Karen. One of my favorite films for sure. What about you, Steve?
I do thoroughly enjoy the movie. I like the parts that everybody played. I understand Michael's distaste for the way his character was brought across. But one thing about the movie that I feel like would have been better, that they...
Well, I think we lost you a little
really
bit.
the truth...
Oh, wait a minute. Say that again, Steve.
I said, can you hear me now? Are we good?
Yeah.
We good now? Okay. I said I really liked the movie. I agree with Michael Orr's kind of frustration, not necessarily anger, but frustration of the way he was portrayed in the movie. But one thing that I didn't like about the movie was the truth about how bad it really was for him while he was growing up. They kind of showed you and they got the point across, but I just kind of want to go over, just say a couple things. He repeated the first and second grade. He went to, during his first 9 years as a student, he was in 11 different schools. He was placed in foster care at the age of 7 and alternated from...
Suspense is killing me.
I know. Sorry,
And
ladies
also-
and gentlemen, about the experience we're having with the live feed here. Sorry, Steve, we're missing some of what you're saying. I think where we left off from what we heard was you saying that he had been in foster care from one place to the next, and then we didn't hear what you said after that.
Well, I'll start over. He went to, during his first 9 years as a student, he was in 11 different schools. And at age 7, he was put into foster care and alternated all the way up to when he was picked up by Leanne and the family between foster care and being homeless. I mean, this child had really had to overcome so much to even get in a livable position. And I think it not really addressing how huge the family taking him in was in a changing of his life. Mm-hmm. And you see it and they portray it in the movie, but I don't think they portray it as how life altering it really could have been for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think
they probably didn't want to know, or they probably didn't know how to really delve into that.
I think one of the pitfalls about film in general, sadly, is not having enough time to do it.
Right.
In the essence of the film itself, the film would be 4 hours to 5 hours long. So at some point, you've got to find a place or where you can edit it so that the story still is there. There's a presence of it, so that you can understand the transitions that are occurring. But I like the fact that we have shows like this where you can actually bring out a little bit more information for our audience to hear and learn about, and even hopefully investigate later on. So thanks for mentioning that, Steve. That's cool. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a valid point. I mean, the movie, you could easily have a movie just about that, that portion of going through foster homes, homeless. How does he survive? What did he do to survive? And I think one of the things that the movie alluded to was that he survived through these really horrible circumstances, but he was still a nice guy. Mm-hmm. That was one of the points made early and often in the movie, that as hard as life was on him, it didn't make him this really like vengeful, bitter person. He stood up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. That's how he met up with Leanne Chloe's son, SJ. He was helping him out. So yeah, but you could easily have a movie about that before you even get to the Chloe's. How did he survive? And just the fact that he did is, just indicates what an amazing person he is mm-hmm. in his own right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So, 3 really good movies, guys. 3 really good inspirational types of films that are inspirational in slightly different ways. And we have the first situation, a dream that was not fulfilled. A second situation, a blue-collar guy who really isn't thinking about professional football at all, and a situation presents itself that gives him an opportunity, and it turns out to be an opportunity of a lifetime. And in the latter film, in a situation where meeting the right person or right people at the right time gives a person an opportunity, a second chance at a better life, and that better life takes it even further into the professional realms of sports. So inspirational all, but in different facets, different forms, different platforms slightly. I think overall, I really enjoyed all 3 of these films quite a bit. Sounds like from what I gathered from what you guys are saying is that you did as well. It's not that often that we agree that these are pretty good movies, all in all. So every once in a while we can agree to disagree, but this time I think we agree to agree on how cool these movies were. And yeah, they're... So I want to ask a question, just a general question to you both, and even for myself. How do these movies affect how you think about motivation and inspiration for yourselves after watching the films?
Steve?
Oh, I'm going first?
Yes.
I really feel as a motivation that these 3 movies really, they should inspire you to not give up. They should inspire you to not give in. They should inspire you to really take what people say around you with a grain of salt if it's not positive. If it is positive, really use it as fuel and kind of let it burn inside you and let it push you forward, that there's other people that believe you can do this as much as there's people that think that you can't. And it really is an anything is possible in all situations of these movies. It might not happen, but there's always a chance, and there's always the possibility that you can make your dream come true.
How about you, Karen?
Yeah, I would agree with what Steve said, and I guess, for me, after watching these movies, I normally come out of the theater thinking, I don't have the right to complain about anything. Look at what they accomplished, and mm-hmm. and they had far less in the way of advantages and assets than I have, and I can conquer the world, and like 3 minutes later, then I'm like getting ice cream or something. So
yeah, and then reality beats you over the head.
So your James Cagney doesn't stay with you, huh?
No, not really. James is pretty fleeting. But for one brief shining moment, I was a Yankee Doodle daddy. And then it was like, oh, forget about it.
Top of the world, Ma. Top of the world.
Top of the world.
Oh, my God.
Yes, I've had my own kind of stoic times.
Oh, there's a picture of you next to stoic in the dictionary.
I know.
You, sir, are an oak.
Yes. In fact, I found its name next to Trouble too a few times. But anyway, yeah, I'm too much in my head a lot of times, and these are the films that help me get out of my head and make me feel a little bit more inspired to try to achieve things in my life. It may not be necessarily these long-term ideologies, but definitely short-term or even short-long-term feelings to help motivate me to do things. And I think that's part of the reason why I watch these films, to get that motivation, to get that all-inspired feeling of, yeah, I can actually do it. I'm lazy sometimes. I'm, um, what's the word? Empathetic. No, apathetic sometimes. And so these are the kind of movies that I look to watch again. That's why I've seen them so many times, to help re-emphasize to myself that there is still hope. Hope is still a viable essence. It's not fleeting, and I can continue on and do better. I can motivate myself to do better. But it's so helpful to have these films available or readily available to me, to be able to go into my collection and say, hey, I'm feeling certain kind of way today. Let me see what this does to kind of help me get back into my, better frame of mind, get my mojo working. And surely these films have been able to inspire that in me and bring that out of me, even if it's just so I can get a certain task done, even if I just need to get through the day. And that's probably why film is so important to me otherwise, because it does have that motivational power for me. And clearly these three movies fit into that category of my all-time movies to inspire me toward that. Now, there's inspiration, I think, in many of the films that we've come across over time, that we've been able to discuss with you, the listening audience, with each other, and that inspire us or have us feel a certain way that gets us, if not necessarily motivated to do something, but maybe gets us to keep in mind the things that help us get through and look at people in a different way. We can very easily look at people in a very segmented way, and it's not hard to do that. Many of us have blinders on, sadly. But films like this, other inspirational films that are not necessarily there to inspire initially, but are there to give you an understanding about how life is for certain situations and certain people in the world, and gives us a better understanding, if nothing else, of how to deal with structures and situations and, again, different people. And that's why I think film is so important as an educational tool, if nothing else. So any other thoughts or concerns about what we discussed today and the films that we watched that you want to leave our audience with before we get out of here?
No, I got nothing. Actually, I lied. I fibbed.
Well, I learned not to lie from my movies.
Found it. Jim, I just wanted to talk about Jim Morris for a second. He debuted in Major League.
Oh, Steve, it happened
21
again. It froze you,
games.
bro. It froze you again, bro. Try again.
He debuted in Major League Baseball at the age of 35.
That's pretty amazing.
He didn't have a win and he didn't have a loss. He was actually a relief pitcher for them. He had 13 strikeouts in 21 games. And if there's motivation enough, this is a 35-year-old getting out there doing what some young kids can't do. So just kind of a little nitpick, don't give up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Aaron?
What he said, I guess.
13 Ks.
Don't give up. Never give
Nick.
up. Never surrender. No, that's Galaxy Quest. Different.
But even in the realms of television, within the realms of the TV, within the realms of the movie, for the television show, in the movie, that was awe-inspiring because it got that doctor who was not really a doctor,
Right.
a doctor on television, and not really a doctor in space who was an alien, but really a human.
Right.
It got him inspired enough to actually help save their lives.
So true.
So you never know where your inspiration is going to come from.
Sometimes it's just in the words and the way you say them.
Sometimes it's just a bad television show.
Sometimes it's just a bad TV show.
That's very
That's at Comic-Con.
I have watched many of them.
No, I really like this as a genre for movies too. I always have. I mean, to me, I like gladiator type movies. I like swashbucklers. I like underdog movies. I think most people do. But like sports, mostly the men who play sports, and I'll just say that because most of the movies related to sports are about men more so than women. They're about the gladiators. They're about these people who sort of take on this fight, and it's this stylized version of war where hopefully nobody gets hurt. Sometimes people do get hurt, but it's stylized, sort of reenactment of a war. There are winners and losers, there are rules, and the best, I think that the constant about sports, what people like about sports, is that it defines who's better in a very clear, unambiguous way. Mm-hmm. If you get more points, you're better. End of story. We don't need to discuss this any further. There's not a whole lot in the actual real world of life that is that clear. Sometimes, and even in sports, I mean, you could take issue with, whether they were really better or were they just having a bad day. I mean, you can have those discussions, but at the end of the day, the winner has the most points or has the best, result. If the best result is lower points, then the best person has that. And life doesn't work like that. And we wish it would. I think as a just, collective consciousness, we wish it would work like that, so that the better people always win and the people who aren't better always lose. And sports kind of gives you hope that maybe that can happen sometime. So it's
unless you're the Cleveland Browns.
So you really shouldn't bring your personal problems to the podcast. But
I was about to say, or the Chicago Bears, but I'll stop.
At least the Bears won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they've won a few championships, actually. But the Cleveland Browns had Jim Brown.
Can we get back to my incredibly poignant discussion here? But anyway, no.
I apologize. I am sorry.
Poignant on.
No, but anyway, that would be my parting shot, is that's what's so intriguing about sports movies. That's why, I'm not a sports person. The only two sports I've ever enjoyed playing are tennis and racquetball. I don't enjoy playing any other sports. I have no desire to play other sports in any way, shape, or form. I used to play softball as a child. I hated every second of it. Literally every single second. That's like 2 summers of my life I will never get back.
Well, per the Olympics, fencing is a sport.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I also enjoy fencing. Thank you.
It's an Olympic sport, yeah.
Tennis, racquetball, and fencing are the only sports I've ever enjoyed.
Racquetball.
What did you say, Steve? Racquetball what?
I said racquetball is dangerous.
Yeah, I like that.
Actually, all 3 of them are dangerous, Steve.
Well,
because I don't know about you. Have you ever been hit with a tennis ball that's been served by a vicious serve? I've been hit by a few of those, and pretty much kept me from playing anymore.
Oh God.
I have.
And I
been
played
hit
football. I thought that was nicer than tennis.
I have been hit by a tennis ball, but that wall that you hit in racquetball while you're trying to go after the ball and make a return, that wall's got no give compared to that tennis ball.
That's true. It really does. And you really don't want to hit the wall very much.
I want to say something about my grandfather. I want to mention this about my grandfather. And it's two things. The first thing is, one day, my father took my oldest brother and I to go visit my grandfather when he was still with us. And at the time, my grandfather was watching boxing on television when we got there. So we were talking, and Granddad was tasking us about what's going on in our lives. And so my oldest brother was at the time playing college football, and I was in high school playing football. And he said to us he thought football was a very violent sport. And we looked at each other like, well, what's boxing?
It's the sweet science.
It is, but it's the times also. This was something that my grandfather took as something that he enjoyed so much that for him, it wasn't so much a violent thing. It was a man effort against a man's effort and that struggle to survive. Football was just a whole bunch of guys throwing their bodies at each other and knowing that, even though they're wearing equipment, they're throwing their bodies even harder because they're wearing equipment. So
Right.
that was a little bit more, seemingly more violent. And maybe it's because more people don't know about my grandfather's, what he was thinking about it. But I thought that was interesting. And as I'm saying that now, I'm thinking if my grandfather knew that Karen played racquetball, fenced, and played tennis, I would think he'd say, well, that's kind of violent, isn't it?
You probably would. But
Like, wow.
I used to watch boxing. I used to enjoy watching boxing matches, especially as a kid growing up. And in my day job, I had because of the assignment I was given, part of that assignment involved me going to boxing matches. I was involved in an evaluation of our state athletic commission, and the state athletic commission regulated boxing matches. So I went, into the dressing rooms while they weighed the boxers and, how they, was there as they prepped them for matches. And I actually went to like a boxing match as part of this assignment. And I really enjoyed watching boxing matches until the day I actually went to a boxing match. And that it was sickening. Oh, I couldn't wait to get out of there. It's like you're sitting, and I think I was in like the second row. And, you're watching.
You're gonna get, yeah, I know what that means.
Yeah, you're watching these people pummel each other, and it's depressing as hell to watch two human beings doing that. And you see the blood and the spit and the sweat and oh my God. And it's like, please don't let any of that hit me. Please don't let any of that hit me. So, I was so worried about being hit by bloodborne pathogens that I really couldn't enjoy, the match. And, it's just, oh my God. And I've not watched a boxing match since.
Wow, crazy, huh?
Crazy.
It is. So it's really cool to find out that there's a little bit of Errol Flynn in my sister. Very nice thing. Yeah, I thought when you first told me that I cared about fencing, I was like, what? And I thought, yeah, she said, I can see that. So
hey, you haven't seen my skydiving film yet.
Oh, you did it?
Yes.
Sweet. See, adventure, swashbuckle. That's her.
Yep.
In her other life, she was a pirate. And I don't mean Pittsburgh. Because frankly, I think people in Baltimore don't like people in Pittsburgh. But anyway, that's a different story.
Okay, the skydiving took place indoors, but anyway.
That doesn't matter. It's still something that's a nuance and something cool that people don't always experience. And I think that kind of thing is very cool. It got Lynette and I looking to find somewhere to do that. So very cool.
I got to show you the movie sometime.
Very cool. That'll work. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we segued ourselves right out of what our theme was, it's cool to get the conversation about inspiration, no matter where the inspiration comes from. But we're hoping that you'll take the opportunity to see the films that we talked about and also find different ways to inspire yourself, inspire your family and friends and acquaintances. And uh, just try to be a better person as we go through this life. And hopefully film will help you find answers to some of the other questions you may have in the world, and let them be your inspiration sometimes. Thanks again for hanging out with us here on A Real Point of View. We appreciate you and hope that you'll come back and visit us again, and check out our YouTube channel and at A Real Point of View, and see some of the other um, segments that we've had, episodes we've had, and the different films that we talk about in those moments. So thanks again, Steve. Thanks again, Karen, and appreciate you both. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a good night, have a good weekend, and enjoy the films. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.